My son never gave me gifts, not real ones, and he sure as hell never cooked for me. That's why the box of handmade birthday chocolates on my kitchen table felt wrong from the moment I saw it. The next day, he smiled and asked, "So, how are the chocolates?" I said, "I gave them to your wife and the kids. They love sweets." He went silent for a second, then screamed, "You did what?" That's when I understood. Someone at this table was supposed to be harmed, and it wasn't supposed to be them. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? I'm Harold Mercer, Harry to anyone who's known me longer than 5 minutes. 61 years old, 35 of those spent behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler, hauling freight across 48 states. I've seen every truck stop from Seattle to Miami, slept in more rest areas than I can count, and logged enough miles to circle the earth maybe 40 times over. The road was my life, my marriage, my identity. It was also why my son Cole grew up watching me leave more than watching me stay. I remember him as a kid, maybe 6 or 7, pressing his face against the living room window every time I rolled out of the driveway. His mother would stand behind him with her hand on his shoulder, waving until I turned the corner. Sometimes I'd look in the rearview mirror and see them there, getting smaller and smaller until they disappeared completely. By the time he was 12, he stopped coming to the window. By 16, he stopped saying goodbye altogether. By the time he graduated high school, he barely looked at me when I came home between runs. Can't say I blame him. I missed birthdays. I missed his 10th birthday party where all his friends came over and his mother made a cake shaped like a spaceship. I missed Christmas morning when he was 14 and opened the skateboard he'd wanted all year. His mother picked it out and put my name on the card. I missed school plays where he had speaking roles. I missed the science fair where he built a volcano that actually worked, complete with baking soda lava that impressed all the judges. His mother told me about it over the phone while I was parked at a pilot in Nebraska, eating cold pizza and trying not to feel like a piece of garbage. She sent me photos. I saved them on my phone and looked at them when I stopped for the night, but it wasn't the same as being there. But here's the thing about being a trucker. You don't get to pick when the loads come in. You take the work when it's there, or someone else does. The bills don't stop coming just because you want to be home for your kid's soccer game. We needed the money. The house didn't pay for itself. Neither did Cole's braces or his college fund or the new transmission in my ex-wife's car. Neither did the medical bills when his mother got pneumonia one winter and spent a week in the hospital. I told myself I was doing it for them, that every mile I drove, every night I spent in a truck stop parking lot, every birthday I missed, it was all for their future, for their security. Maybe I was. Maybe I just loved the road more than I loved being home. Maybe it was easier to be alone with my thoughts and the radio than it was to face the disappointment in my son's eyes every time I walked through the door. Either way, Cole grew up, and I got old. The marriage ended when he was 17. His mother met someone who actually came home at night, and I didn't fight it. Cole went off to college, got his degree in business, and started working in sales. We'd talk maybe twice a year, Christmas and his birthday usually, short conversations, awkward silences. Neither of us knew what to say to the other anymore. 3 years ago, my back finally gave out for good. Herniated discs, nerve damage, the whole nightmare. I was hauling a load of appliances through Pennsylvania when the pain hit so hard I nearly jackknifed the rig trying to pull over. I managed to get to the shoulder, called dispatch, and sat there for 20 minutes trying not to pass out. The pain was like someone had shoved a hot knife into my spine and was twisting it slowly. An ambulance came, then a tow truck for the rig, then 6 weeks of physical therapy that hurt worse than the original injury, then a year of fighting with the insurance company, going to doctors, filling out forms, sitting in waiting rooms. They tried to say it was a pre-existing condition, tried to say I'd been negligent, tried to lowball me with an offer that wouldn't have covered my medical bills, let alone let me retire. But I'd been driving trucks for 35 years. I knew how to be stubborn. I knew how to wait people out. I knew how to read the fine print and call them on their nonsense. Eventually, they settled. Disability retirement, a decent pension, and a payout that let me finish paying off the house. Single-story ranch on the edge of a small Ohio town. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Quiet street, big yard, neighbors who mostly kept to themselves. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a garage I could actually park in. The roof was good. The furnace worked. The water heater was only 5 years old. For the first time in decades, I wasn't going anywhere. No more truck stops, no more weigh stations, no more logbooks and dot inspections and wondering if the guy in front of me knows how to merge. Just me, my house, and whatever I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And that's when Cole started coming around again. At first, I thought maybe we were finally going to fix things. He'd call me up out of the blue, ask how I was doing, tell me about his job. He'd bring the grandkids over, Mason, 8, and Tessa, 6, and they'd run around the yard while Cole and I sat on the porch drinking beer. He'd talk about his job, regional sales for some home renovation outfit, and I'd nod along even though I could tell most of it was hot air. The company was always about to close a major deal or expanding into new markets. Cole always had a story about some big client he'd impressed or some competitor he'd outsmarted, but I'd spent enough time around salesmen at shipping docks to know when someone was overselling. Cole talked like a man who needed people to think he was doing better than he actually was. His wife Kelsey was the same way, all smiles and yoga pants and Instagram posts about wellness and positive energy. She had maybe 2,000 followers online and called herself a lifestyle coach, which as far as I could tell meant she posted pictures of smoothies and gave advice about meditation. She called me Pops in this sweet voice that made my teeth itch because I could hear the calculation underneath it. Every word out of her mouth sounded rehearsed, like she was always performing for an invisible audience. Still, they were family. And the kids were good. Mason loved hearing my old trucker stories. The crazy weather and weird roadside attractions and the time I helped pull a minivan out of a ditch in Montana during a blizzard. He'd sit on the porch steps with his chin in his hands, asking a million questions. What was the biggest storm you ever drove through? Did you ever see a tornado? What's the scariest thing that ever happened? Tessa would sit in my lap and draw pictures of trucks with crayons. She'd make the trucks purple and pink and give them smiley faces, and I'd tell her they were the prettiest trucks I'd ever seen. She'd beam and show them to her mother, who'd glance at them for half a second and say something like, "That's nice, honey," without really looking. Those moments felt real. The kids didn't have an agenda. They just wanted their grandpa to pay attention to them. Everything else felt like a performance. My 61st birthday was on a Tuesday in late September. I wasn't expecting much. Cole usually sent a text, HBD, Dad, or Happy Birthday, with maybe a thumbs up emoji. One year he sent a coffee mug with World's Okayest Dad printed on it. I'm pretty sure Kelsey picked it out as a joke. I used it once and then put it in the back of the cupboard where I didn't have to look at it. So when I came home from the grocery store and found a white cardboard box on my kitchen table, wrapped with a blue ribbon and a handwritten note, I stopped in the doorway and stared at it like it might explode. The note was written on a small card in Cole's handwriting. I recognized it from the few birthday cards he'd sent over the years. It said, "Happy birthday, Dad. Made these myself. Hope you enjoy. Cole." Made these himself. Cole had never made me anything in his entire life. Not a card, not a sandwich, not a cup of coffee. When he was a kid, his mother would help him make Father's Day cards with construction paper and glitter, but I always knew they were 90% her work. As an adult, he'd never cooked for me, never baked, never even brought over takeout that he'd picked up himself. It was always Kelsey who grabbed the food while Cole waited in the car. I set the grocery bags down on the counter, milk, bread, eggs, the usual, and walked over slowly. The box was about the size of a shoebox, maybe a little smaller, light enough that I could tell it wasn't full. I untied the ribbon carefully, like I was diffusing something dangerous, and lifted the lid. Inside were 12 chocolates, arranged in 2 neat rows on a bed of brown tissue paper. They looked homemade, all right. Uneven shapes, some with little swirls of white chocolate on top, others dusted with cocoa powder. A few had what looked like sea salt sprinkled on them, the kind of thing you'd see at a farmer's market for $10 a box, made by some local artisan. They smelled fine, rich, sweet, a little bit of vanilla, maybe some caramel. I picked one up and turned it over in my fingers. It felt solid, well made. No visible tampering, no weird texture, nothing obviously wrong with it, but everything in my gut was screaming wrong. You spend 3.5 decades on the road, you learn to trust your instincts. You learn to read the little signs that other people miss. The truck in your mirror that's following too close and won't pass even when you slow down. The ice patch you can't see but you can feel in the way the trailer starts to drift just a fraction to the left. The loader who's rushing the job because he wants to get home early and doesn't care if he stacks the pallets wrong, which means your load is going to shift somewhere around mile marker 200, and you're going to have to pull over and restack everything yourself in the rain. You learn that when something feels off, it usually is. Your brain picks up on details your conscious mind hasn't processed yet, and if you ignore that feeling, you pay for it. I put the chocolate back in the box, closed the lid carefully, retied the ribbon exactly the way it had been. Then I put the whole thing in the fridge and went about my day, put the groceries away, made myself a sandwich, watched the news, tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something very bad had just walked into my house disguised as a birthday present. The next morning, Cole called. I was standing in my kitchen, drinking coffee, watching a crow pick at something in the yard. It was a clear morning, cool but not cold, the kind of September day that makes you think maybe fall won't be so bad this year. My phone buzzed, Cole's name on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. "Hey, Dad, just wanted to check in. How was your birthday?" His voice was too casual, too careful, like he was trying to sound relaxed but couldn't quite pull it off. "Fine," I said. I took a sip of coffee and waited. "Did you get my gift?" "I did. That was unexpected." He laughed. It sounded forced, like he was reading from a script. "Yeah, well, I wanted to do something special this year. You're always saying I never put in any effort, so I figured I'd try. Kelsey helped me with the recipe. We spent a whole afternoon making them." That was a lie. 2 lies, actually. I'd never said anything to him about not putting in effort. I'd thought it plenty of times, but I'd never said it out loud. And the idea of Cole and Kelsey spending an afternoon together making chocolates was about as believable as Cole volunteering to clean out my gutters. "Appreciate it," I said. There was a pause. I could hear him breathing. Somewhere in the background, a door closed. Then, "So, how were the chocolates?" The way he asked it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Not, "Did you like them?" or, "Were they good?" "How were they?" Like he was asking about the effects of medication. "I gave them to your wife and the kids," I said. "They love sweets?" Silence. Not just silence. A complete absence of sound, like he'd stopped breathing. Then, "You did what?" His voice went up so sharp and so loud that I pulled the phone away from my ear. The crow in the yard startled and flew off. "They're just chocolates, Cole." You gave them to Kelsey and the kids? When?" "Yesterday evening. They stopped by after dinner. Why? What's the problem?" I could hear him moving now. Fast footsteps, like he was pacing. "Dad, those were specifically for you. I made them for you. They weren't supposed to. Since when do you care who eats your gifts? If they're that good, everyone should get to enjoy them." "Where are they now? Did they eat them all? How many did they eat?" "I don't know, Cole. A few each, I think. Why are you so worked up about this?" I gotta go. I'll call you back." He hung up. I stood there holding my phone, staring at it, feeling that cold weight settle into my chest. The same feeling I used to get when I'd see a driver swerving in the lane ahead, crossing the center line and then jerking back, doing it over and over, and I just knew, that in about 30 seconds something bad was about to happen, and I needed to be ready for it. I walked over to the fridge, opened it, and took out the box of chocolates. Still full, untouched. All 12 of them sitting there in their neat little rows. I'd lied to him. Kelsey and the kids hadn't stopped by. I'd spent my birthday alone, like I always did. I'd made myself a steak, watched a Western on TV, and gone to bed at 9:30, but Cole didn't know that, and his reaction told me everything I needed to know. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened the box again. This time I looked closer, moving the chocolates aside carefully. Underneath the tissue paper, tucked into the corner of the box, I saw something small and metallic. I pulled it out. A blister pack. Empty. The kind that holds pills with the foil backing punched through. 10 little compartments, all of them empty. It must have gotten stuck to the bottom of the box when Cole was packing the chocolates. A mistake. A slip-up. I held it up to the light. No label, no markings, no prescription information. Just a generic pharmacy blister pack. The kind you could buy over the counter at any pharmacy. Could have been aspirin. Could have been allergy medication. Could have been vitamins. Or something else. I set it down carefully on the table, like it might bite me. My phone rang again. I looked at the screen. Cole. I didn't answer. He called 3 more times in the next 10 minutes. Each time I let it go to voicemail. Then he sent a text. "Dad, please call me back. It's important." Then another. "I need to know if Kelsey and the kids are okay." Then, "Dad, seriously, this isn't funny." I turned the phone off and sat in the quiet of my kitchen, thinking. Cole was scared. That much was obvious. He thought Kelsey and the kids had eaten those chocolates, and whatever was in them was bad enough to make him panic, bad enough to make him call me 4 times in 10 minutes, which meant they'd been meant for me, and whatever was supposed to happen was something he didn't want happening to his own family. I've never been an aggressive man. Spent my whole life avoiding fights, keeping my head down, doing my job. I've been in maybe 3 physical altercations in 61 years, and 2 of those were in high school. The third was at a truck stop in Arkansas when some guy tried to steal my fuel and I had to convince him it wasn't worth it. I didn't throw a single hit, just stood my ground until he backed down. But I've also never been stupid, and I've sure as hell never been the kind of guy who lets someone take a swing at him and just stands there. If my son tried to hurt me, I was going to find out why. And then I was going to make him regret it. I called Miles Baxter around noon. Miles and I went back 30 years. We'd met at a way station in Illinois when I was hauling a load of machinery that turned out to be 50 pounds overweight. The shipper had screwed up the paperwork, but that didn't matter to the scale. Overweight was overweight, and I was looking at a $1,000 fine, plus sitting on the side of the road for the rest of the day while I figured out what to do. Miles was working as a state trooper back then, pulling extra shifts at the way station to make ends meet. He could have written me up and been done with it. Instead, he walked me around back where there was a construction dumpster and told me if I could find 50 pounds of ballast to dump, I could reweigh and be on my way. I found some scrap metal in the trailer that the loader had left behind, bolts, chains, a couple of old pallets, dumped it in the dumpster, and reweighed. Legal. Miles winked at me and said, "Drive safe." We stayed in touch after that. He'd call me when he saw my rig at certain stops. I'd call him when I was passing through Illinois. Eventually, we started meeting up for beers when I had layovers. He became the closest thing I had to a best friend, which is saying something when you spend most of your life alone in a truck. He retired about 5 years ago, moved to a little place about 20 miles from mine. We got together every couple of weeks to play cards and complain about getting old. He'd tell me stories about the fools he'd arrested. I'd tell him stories about the fools I'd shared the road with. We'd drink cheap beer and pretend we weren't both a little bit lonely. "Harry," he said when he picked up, "what's wrong? What makes you think something's wrong? Because you never call in the middle of the day. You're either sleeping, eating, or fixing something. So what's wrong?" I told him everything. The chocolates. Cole's reaction. The empty pill blister. The frantic phone calls. Miles listened without interrupting. I could hear him breathing. The occasional clink of dishes. He was probably doing his lunch cleanup. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You still got the chocolates?" he asked. "Yeah." "And the blister pack?" "Yeah." "Bring 'em over. I want to take a look." I drove out to his place, a small cabin on the edge of a state forest. Miles had bought it cheap from some guy who'd given up on retirement and moved back to the city. It needed work. The porch sagged a little, the paint was peeling, the yard was mostly weeds, but Miles didn't care. He had a wood stove, a generator for when the power went out, and enough privacy that he could sit on his porch in his underwear if he wanted to. He was waiting for me when I pulled up, standing on the porch with his arms crossed. Miles was a big guy, maybe 6'2", 260 pounds. He'd put on weight since retiring, stopped working out, started eating worse, but he still moved like someone who could handle himself if things went sideways. Gray beard, thinning hair, hands like catcher's mitts. I handed him the box. He opened it carefully, studied the chocolates, then held up the blister pack. "This was in there?" "Yeah, tucked in the corner under the paper." He turned it over in his fingers, squinting at it in the afternoon light. Then he looked at me with an expression I didn't like. "Harry, you know what this sounds like to me?" "What?" "Not a bad gift. A failed test." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He set the box down on the porch railing and crossed his arms again. "You ever hear of people using over-the-counter stuff to fake medical emergencies? Sleeping pills, heart medication, stuff like that. You give someone a high enough dose, especially someone your age, and they might faint, fall down the stairs, hit their head on the counter. Suddenly they look like they're not safe living alone, like they need help, like they need someone to step in and take care of things for them." I felt my jaw tighten. "You think Cole was trying to make me look incompetent?" "I think Cole was testing the waters. If you'd eaten a couple of those chocolates and started feeling dizzy, slurring your words, acting confused, he could have used that as evidence that you need help, that you're not safe on your own, that maybe you should think about moving somewhere with supervision." "And if I fell?" Miles shrugged. "Accidents happen, especially to old guys living alone in big houses. Trip on the rug, miss a step, slip in the shower. Nobody questions it. It's just a tragedy." The words hung in the air between us. A crow cawed somewhere in the trees behind the cabin. "You need to get these tested," Miles said. "I know a guy who runs a private lab about an hour from here. Used to work for the state crime lab, then went into business for himself. Does testing for lawyers mostly. Paternity stuff, toxicology for custody cases, that kind of thing. Discreet. He won't ask questions. And then what? Then you decide what you want to do about it." I looked out at the trees, the late afternoon sun filtering through the branches. A deer stepped out of the underbrush about 50 yards away, froze when it saw us, then bounded away into the shadows with that effortless grace they have. "I'm not going to the cops," I said. "Didn't think you would. And I'm not going to confront him. Not yet." Miles nodded slowly. So what are you going to do? I picked up the box of chocolates and looked at it. Thought about all those years I'd spent on the road, learning to be patient, learning to plan 3 moves ahead, learning to read situations and wait for the right moment, learning that the best way to win a fight is to let the other guy think he's already won, let him get overconfident, let him make mistakes. I'm going to play along, I said. Let him think his plan is working, and when he gets confident, when he's sure he's got me right where he wants me, I looked at Miles. I'm going to take everything from him. Miles smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a guy who'd spent 30 years dealing with criminals and knew exactly how satisfying it could be when one of them finally got what they deserved. I'll make the call about the lab, he said. The lab results came back 5 days later. Miles called me on a Sunday morning, early, before the sun was fully up. You awake? He said. I am now. Come over, bring coffee. I drove out to his place with a thermos of black coffee and a bag of donuts from the gas station. Miles was sitting at his kitchen table with a manila folder in front of him. He didn't say anything, just slid it across to me when I sat down. I opened it. The report was 3 pages long, full of technical language I barely understood, chemical compounds, milligrams per unit, phrases like concentration levels and recommended dosage ranges. But the summary at the end was clear enough. The chocolates contained a mixture of diphenhydramine, doxylamine, and a prescription beta blocker called propranolol. The diphenhydramine and doxylamine were both sleep aids, the kind you can buy over the counter at any pharmacy. The propranolol was a prescription medication used to treat high pressure and anxiety. All 3 were present in doses significantly higher than recommended for someone my age and weight. The report noted that diphenhydramine alone can cause severe drowsiness, confusion, and dizziness in elderly patients. Combined with doxylamine, the effects are amplified. Add in a beta blocker, which lowers heart rate and pressure, and you're looking at a dangerous combination. Then there was a note at the bottom, written by the lab tech. Subject currently takes lisinopril for pressure per client information. The combination of propranolol and lisinopril in these doses could result in dangerous drop in pressure, syncope, and risk of injury from falls. Would not recommend consumption. Syncope. I had to look that one up on my phone. It means fainting. I read the report twice slowly, making sure I understood every word. Then I set it down and looked at Miles. He tried to take me out, I said quietly. Looks that way? Not quickly. Not obviously. He wanted it to look like an accident, like I just fell. And then he'd swoop in, play the concerned son, get power of attorney while you're laid up in the hospital. Or worse. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Not anger, not yet. Just clarity. The kind of clarity you get when you've been driving through fog for hours and suddenly the road ahead is perfectly clear and you can see exactly where you need to go. I need to know what else he's planning, I said. You think there's more? I know there is. The chocolates were just step 1. He's got something bigger in mind. Miles leaned back in his chair, studying me. You need to be careful, Harry. If he figures out you're on to him, he won't, because I'm going to give him exactly what he wants. Which is? A confused old man who can't take care of himself. Miles raised his eyebrows. You're going to fake it? Just enough to keep him interested. Just enough to make him think his plan is working. I tapped the folder. I need to keep this safe, and I need to start documenting everything. You know how to work a recording device. Miles, I spent 30 years with a dash cam running 12 hours a day. I think I can figure it out. He grinned. All right. But you're going to need more than just recordings. You need witnesses, documentation, the kind of evidence that holds up when you decide to drop the hammer. I know. And you need to protect yourself legally. Get your affairs in order before he tries to do it for you. That was the part that scared me the most. Not what Cole might do to me physically, but what he might do legally. How much of my life he might try to take control of while I was too confused to stop him. I'll call my lawyer tomorrow, I said. Good. And Harry? Yeah? Whatever you're planning, make sure it ends with you on top. Because if you go after him and miss, he's not going to give you a second chance. I nodded, picked up the folder, headed for the door. Harry, Miles called after me. I turned. For what it's worth, he said, I'm sorry it came to this. No father should have to go through this with his kid. Yeah, I said. Well, he stopped being my kid the moment he tried to poison me. I drove home and spent the rest of the day thinking about how to play this. Cole would be back. I knew he would. He'd want to check on me, see if I'd shown any symptoms, gauge whether he needed to try again, or move on to the next phase of whatever plan he had cooking. I needed to be ready. That night, I went online and ordered 3 small cameras, the kind they sell for home security. Wireless, motion-activated, hidden in everyday objects like smoke detectors and alarm clocks. You can get them for $29 each on Amazon. I also ordered a digital voice recorder that looked like a pen, $50, and a small external hard drive to store everything, another $30. 2 days later, when everything arrived, I spent an afternoon setting it up. Camera in the kitchen, mounted inside a wall clock, pointed at the table and counter. Camera in the living room, hidden in a bookshelf, covering the couch and TV. Camera in the hallway, disguised as a smoke detector, watching the front door. The recorder I kept in my shirt pocket whenever Cole was around. Just click it on when he arrived, click it off when he left. Everything backed up to the external hard drive at the end of each day. Then I waited. Cole showed up 3 days later, unannounced. I was in the garage, organizing my tools, something I did when I needed to think, sorting wrenches and sockets and screwdrivers into their proper places, when I heard his car pull into the driveway. I walked out to meet him, wiping my hands on an old rag. He looked nervous, tired, like he hadn't been sleeping well. Good. "Hey, Dad," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thought I'd stop by, see how you're doing." "I'm fine," I said. "Why wouldn't I be?" "I don't know. You seemed a little off on the phone last time we talked." "Did I?" He studied me, trying to read my face. I kept my expression neutral, slightly confused, like I didn't quite remember the conversation, like it was all a little fuzzy. "Yeah," he said slowly. "You did. Have you been feeling okay? Any dizzy spells or anything?" "Fine. Just tired, I guess. Takes me longer to get going in the morning than it used to." "You taking your medication?" "Of course." He glanced past me into the garage. "You've been out here a while? You remember what you were looking for?" I frowned, made it look like I was thinking hard. "I'm not looking for anything. I'm organizing." "Right. Sorry." He shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "Listen, Dad, I've been thinking. You're living out here all alone, and I worry about you. What if something happened? What if you fell or got sick and nobody knew for hours? Days even?" Here we go, I thought, right on schedule. "I'm fine, Cole. I don't need a babysitter." I know. But maybe it wouldn't hurt to have someone check in on you, or, think about downsizing, moving somewhere closer to us, somewhere with less maintenance. This house is a lot of work for one person." "You mean a retirement home?" "No, not necessarily. Just somewhere easier, where you don't have to worry about the yard and the roof and all that stuff. Somewhere with people around, activities. You might even like it." I let the silence stretch out, watched him squirm. He was trying so hard to sound caring, but I could see the calculation behind his eyes. "I'll think about it," I said finally. His face brightened. "Really?" "Sure. Makes sense, I guess. This place is a lot of work. Sometimes I forget to mow the lawn for weeks." That was a lie. My lawn looked better than anyone else's on the block, but he didn't question it. "That's great, Dad. Really. I think it's the right move." "Yeah," I said. I let my shoulders sag a little, made myself look tired and a little bit defeated. "Maybe you're right. I'm getting too old for all this." He put a hand on my shoulder. The weight of it made my skin crawl, but I didn't move, didn't flinch. "We'll figure it out together," he said, his voice warm and reassuring. "I'll help you with everything. You don't have to worry about a thing. I'll handle all the details, all the paperwork. You just relax." I bet you will, I thought. After he left, I went inside and pulled the recorder out of my pocket, rewound it, listened to the conversation again. His voice so smooth and caring. "I'll help you with everything. You don't have to worry about a thing." Translation. "I'll take control of everything while you're too confused to stop me." I saved the file and labeled it with the date and time, added it to the growing folder on my laptop. Then I called my doctor's office and made an appointment. Dr. Elena Alvarez had been my primary care physician for 8 years. She'd taken over the practice from old Dr. Henderson when he retired, and at first I wasn't sure about her. She was young, maybe 40, and I wasn't used to doctors who looked like they'd just graduated college. But she was sharp as a tack, no nonsense. Didn't waste time, didn't talk down to me. She treated me like an adult who was capable of understanding his own health, which was more than I could say for some doctors I'd had over the years. When I showed up for my appointment the following week, a Tuesday morning, first slot of the day, she looked surprised. "Harry," she said as she walked into the exam room, "you're not due for a checkup for another 3 months. Everything okay?" "I need a favor," I said. She sat down on her rolling stool and gestured for me to sit on the exam table. I did. "Your son called my office," she said before I could continue. About a week and a half ago. He said he was concerned you might be having memory issues, that you've been acting confused, repeating yourself, forgetting conversations. He wanted to know if we should schedule a cognitive assessment. What did you tell him? I told him I'd need to talk to you first, that I can't discuss your medical care with family members without your permission. She crossed her arms. Harry, what's going on? I told her. Not everything. Not about the cameras or the recordings or my plan. But enough. The chocolates. The way Cole had reacted. His sudden concern about my mental state. The pressure to move into assisted living. When I finished, her expression had gone from curious to cold. You think your son is trying to have you declared incompetent so he can take control of your assets, she said. It wasn't a question. I think my son is trying to do a lot of things, and I want to make sure he can't. She nodded slowly. All right. I'll run the full battery of cognitive tests. Memory, reasoning, problem-solving, language skills. It'll take about an hour and a half. If you're competent, which I have no reason to believe you're not, I'll document it officially. Thank you. But Harry, she said, leaning forward, if this is what I think it is, you need to be very careful. And you need to get a lawyer involved. This isn't just a family dispute. This is mistreatment of an older person. Already on it. She smiled faintly. Of course you are. The tests were easy. Too easy, honestly. She showed me lists of words and asked me to repeat them back 5 minutes later. I got all of them. She showed me patterns of shapes and asked me to identify what came next. Simple. She asked me to count backward from 100 by 7s. Not a problem. She gave me a series of instructions. Take this pen, tap it on the table twice, hand it to me, then touch your nose. And I followed them perfectly. We went through memory exercises, logic puzzles, reading comprehension. The only thing that gave me any trouble was remembering the date of Pearl Harbor. I said December 8th instead of December 7th, but she said that was normal and didn't count against me. At the end, she printed out the results and handed them to me along with a signed letter on her official letterhead. The letter stated that I had been evaluated on this date and had scored well within the normal range for cognitive function in all areas, that I showed no signs of dementia, memory impairment, or confusion, that I was fully competent to make my own medical, financial, and legal decisions. She'd even added a note at the bottom, patient is alert, oriented, and demonstrates excellent recall and reasoning ability. No cognitive concerns at this time. Keep this somewhere safe, she said, and make copies. If your son tries anything legally, this will be your first line of defense. I will. And Harry, be careful. People who are desperate do desperate things. I left the office and drove straight to the law firm I'd worked with during my disability settlement. Small outfit, just 3 lawyers, but they specialized in workers' comp and elder law. I'd liked them because they didn't try to jerk me around or drag things out to rack up billable hours. They were efficient. The lawyer I'd worked with before, Patricia Moreno, was available. She brought me into her office, closed the door, and listened while I explained what I needed. New will. Revocation of any previous power of attorney drafts or documents that might have been filed without my knowledge. And a trust. I want everything locked up, I said. The house, the pension, the settlement money. I want it set up so my son can't touch any of it. You want to disinherit him? No. I want the money to go to my grandkids. Set up a trust that they can access when they turn 18, college funds, whatever they need. But Cole doesn't get to manage it. He doesn't get to control it. Hell, I don't even want him to know about it until I'm ready to tell him. She made notes, nodding. We can do that. I'll draft a revocable living trust with your grandchildren as beneficiaries. You'll be the trustee while you're alive and competent. If you become incapacitated, we'll name a backup trustee, not your son. A neutral third party. How long will it take? A week. Maybe less if you're in a hurry. I'm in a hurry. All right. She looked at me over her reading glasses. Mr. Mercer, I have to ask, are you in any immediate danger? No. Because if you are, I'm not. But I need to make sure that if something happens to me, my son doesn't benefit from it. She nodded. This will do that. But Harry, these documents won't stop him from trying. If he's determined to get control of your assets, he might contest the trust or try to have you declared incompetent anyway. I know. That's why I'm not telling him about them yet. When will you? I smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. When it'll hurt the most. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. I'll have everything ready by Friday. Come in and we'll sign and notarize everything. I left her office feeling lighter. Not happy. Nothing about this situation was going to make me happy, but prepared. Like I was finally putting pieces in place. Now I just needed to wait for Cole to make his next move. Over the next 2 weeks, Cole ramped up his campaign. He started showing up unannounced, sometimes twice a week. Always with some excuse. He was in the neighborhood, he wanted to drop off groceries, he thought he'd check on the furnace before winter hit. He started bringing me things. Smoothies in big plastic cups with complicated names like Green Vitality Blend and Immune Boost Supreme. He'd hand them to me and watch while I took a sip, telling me how good they were for me, how Kelsey made them fresh that morning. I'd thank him, set them on the counter, and dump them down the sink as soon as he left. He talked louder whenever we were together, like I was hard of hearing. I wasn't. My hearing was fine, but he wanted other people to think I was declining, so he'd practically shout at me in public places. When we went to lunch, his idea, not mine, he'd order for me without asking what I wanted. He'd cut my food into smaller pieces like I was a child. He'd wipe his napkin on my shirt if I got a drop of sauce on it, making a big show of taking care of his poor old dad. He started correcting me in front of Kelsey and the kids. Little things at first. "No, Dad, that happened last month, not last week." "Actually, I think you're thinking of someone else. Remember? We already talked about this." I wasn't misremembering anything. He was gaslighting me, building a narrative, painting a picture of a confused old man who couldn't keep track of his own life. And I let him. I played along, I acted tired. I asked the same question twice in one conversation. I let him catch me forgetting where I put my keys. I'd hide them myself, and then wander around looking for them when he was watching, all of it on camera, all of it recorded. Kelsey joined in too. At a family dinner in early October, they insisted on coming over, insisted on cooking for me. She made a point of mentioning my sleep problems and my little incidents in front of her parents, who'd been invited without my knowledge. "He left the stove on the other day," she said, shaking her head sadly. "Just walked away and forgot about it. We're so worried." That was a lie. I hadn't used the stove in 2 days, and even if I had, I was meticulous about turning it off. But her parents didn't know that. Her father, a stiff-backed businessman named Richard, who'd made his money in real estate, frowned at me across the table like I was a problem that needed solving. "Are you taking care of yourself, Harry?" he asked, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer. "I'm fine," I said. "He says that," Kelsey chimed in, "but we've been so worried. Right, Cole?" Cole nodded gravely, playing his part perfectly. "He's just stubborn. Doesn't want to admit he might need help. We've been trying to talk to him about moving somewhere safer, but..." He trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Poor old Harry, too proud to accept reality. Mason looked up from his plate. "Grandpa's okay. He tells the best stories." "I know, honey," Kelsey said, patting his hand. "But sometimes grown-ups need a little extra help when they get older. It doesn't mean anything bad. It just means we care about them." I caught Mason's eye and gave him a small smile. He smiled back, uncertain, like he didn't quite understand what was happening but knew something was wrong. I hated that she was using the kids for this. Hated that they were watching their father lie and watching their mother manipulate, and they didn't even know it. They just thought the adults were having a normal conversation. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my living room and went through the recordings. Cole's voice, over and over, building his case. "He's not safe. He's declining. We need to do something before it's too late. He doesn't realize how bad it's gotten." And then, on a clip from 2 days earlier, one I'd almost missed, buried in the middle of a longer recording, something that sent a chill through me. Cole, talking to Kelsey in my kitchen while I was supposedly in the bathroom. He thought I was out of earshot. He had no idea the camera was running. "Once we get the paperwork through, we can move him into a facility and put the house on the market. Randall says we can flip it for at least $400,000 if we stage it right. Maybe more if we update the kitchen." Kelsey's response: "How long do you think it'll take?" "A month? Maybe 2. We just need to document a few more incidents. Dr. Alvarez already knows we're concerned. Once we get her on board, the rest is easy." "What about the pension?" "We'll manage it for him. He won't even know what he signed." "And if he fights it?" Cole laughed. Not a nice laugh. A cold, calculating laugh that made him sound like a stranger. "He won't. By the time we're done, everyone will think he can't fight it. And if he tries..." A pause. Then, "Accidents happen, Kelsey. Especially to old guys living alone who are too stubborn to accept help." I sat there in the dark, listening to my son plot to steal my life, and I felt something inside me harden into stone. No more doubt. No more wondering if I was overreacting. No more hoping this was a misunderstanding. Cole wasn't just trying to take my money. He was preparing to erase me, to lock me away somewhere I couldn't resist, couldn't fight back, couldn't do anything but sit in a room and wait to disappear. And if I became too much trouble? Accidents happen. I saved the recording. Backed it up 3 times. Then I called Miles. He answered on the second ring. Harry, it's 10 at night. I need you to come over tomorrow. I've got something you need to hear. What is it? Proof. He was quiet for a moment. Then, I'll be there at 8. Miles showed up at 7:45 the next morning with 2 coffees and a box of donuts from the good bakery across town. I played him the recordings, all of them, every conversation, every correction, every fake concern, and every real threat. When I got to the clip of Cole and Kelsey talking about flipping the house and managing my pension, Miles's jaw tightened. When Cole said accidents happen, Miles set his coffee down hard enough that it sloshed onto the table. That son of a... He stopped himself, took a breath. Harry, you know what this is? Yeah. This isn't just financial exploitation, this is conspiracy. This is him threatening your life. I know. You need to go to the cops. No. Harry, no cops, Miles. You know what'll happen. They'll investigate. Maybe. If I'm lucky, they'll arrest him. Maybe. Then what? He gets a lawyer, posts bail, and suddenly I'm the bad guy who tried to get his own son arrested. The family fractures, the kids get caught in the middle, and even if he gets convicted, which is a big if, he serves a couple years and comes out hating me even more than he does now. So, what are you going to do? I'm going to finish this my way. Miles studied me for a long moment. You're going to destroy him. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who he is. How? I leaned back in my chair. He's planning something, a big move. He keeps talking about getting the paperwork through and documenting incidents. He's building up to something public, something where he can get witnesses to see me signing papers, agreeing to things. He wants it to look official and voluntary. You think he's going to try to get you to sign power of attorney in front of people? That's exactly what he's going to do. And when he does, I'm going to let him think it's working, right up until the moment I pull the rug out from under him. Miles smiled slowly. You're setting a trap. The best kind. The kind where he walks right into it thinking he's already won. You need to be ready. You need everything documented, witnessed, notarized. You need proof that you're competent. You need your own paperwork in order so he can't claim you're confused or being manipulated. I've got Dr. Alvarez's assessment. I've got the trust documents from the lawyer. I've got recordings of every conversation for the past 3 weeks. You need one more thing. What? You need an audience. The right audience. People whose opinion Cole cares about. People who can spread the word about what he tried to do. You expose him privately, he denies it. You expose him publicly, in front of people he respects, people he wants to impress, he's finished. I thought about that. Cole cared about appearances, about status, about what people thought of him. That's why he drove a car he couldn't afford and wore suits that were slightly too expensive for his salary. That's why Kelsey posted constantly on social media, curating this image of the perfect family with the perfect life. Public humiliation would destroy him in a way that legal action never could. He mentioned Randall, I said, the flipper, and Kelsey's parents. He's been cozying up to them, playing the dutiful son. So when he makes his move, he'll want them there, to witness, to validate. Yeah, then that's your audience. We spent the next hour planning. What to record, how to present it, when to pull the trigger. By the time Miles left, we had a plan. Now I just needed Cole to make his move. The call came 3 days later. Hey, Dad, Cole said, his voice bright and cheerful. I was thinking, why don't we have a family dinner at your place? Nothing big, just us, Kelsey's parents, and a couple of friends. What friends? Just Randall and his wife. They're good people. I think you'll like them. Randall's really interested in real estate, and I thought maybe you guys could talk about the market, your options, that kind of thing. Your options. Code 4, we're going to pressure you into selling. When? I asked. How about Saturday? We'll bring the food. You just relax. Sure, sounds nice. Great. Oh, and Dad? I was thinking maybe we could talk about some of that paperwork stuff too. You know, just to have it squared away. Nothing urgent, just good to have everything in order. There it was, the real reason for the dinner. Okay, I said, making my voice tired and uncertain. If you think it's important, I do. It'll give you peace of mind. I'll bring everything with me. All right. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and smiled. Cole was setting the stage for his final play. He was going to try to get me to sign papers in front of witnesses, make it look official, make it look like I was agreeing to everything willingly, surrounded by people who could testify that I seemed fine, that nobody forced me, that it was all my idea. He had no idea he was walking into an ambush. I spent the next 3 days preparing. I cleaned the house until it looked better than it had in years. Vacuumed, dusted, organized. I wanted everything to look normal, well maintained. Evidence that I was perfectly capable of taking care of myself and my home. I tested the cameras again, adjusted angles, made sure the audio was crisp. I connected my laptop to the big flat-screen TV in the living room via HDMI cable, tested the connection 3 times, made sure I could switch from cable to laptop input with a single button on the remote. I organized all the recordings into a single folder, labeled everything clearly, created a playlist that would tell the story in order. The chocolates, the conversations, the planning, the threats. I made copies of Dr. Alvarez's assessment and the trust documents, put them in a folder labeled clearly with my name and the date. On Friday, I called Patricia Moreno. "Everything's ready," she said. "Come in and we'll sign." I went to her office and signed everything. The new will, the trust documents, the revocation of any previous power of attorney attempts. She had everything notarized, made multiple copies, and handed me a complete set in a leather portfolio. "You're fully protected," she said. "If your son tries to file anything claiming authority over your affairs, it'll be rejected. These documents supersede anything else." "Good. Harry, are you sure you don't want to tell me what you're planning?" "The less you know, the better, but I'll call you Monday and give you an update." She looked worried, but nodded. "Be careful." Saturday morning, I woke up early, made coffee, sat on my porch and watched the sun come up. It was a clear day, cool but not cold, perfect autumn weather. By this time tomorrow, everything would be different. I went inside and ran through the checklist one more time. Cameras, working, audio, clear, laptop connected to TV, yes, files organized and ready, yes, documents in order, yes, remote control within reach, yes, I was ready. All I had to do now was wait for Cole to hang himself. They started arriving around 5 in the afternoon. Cole and Kelsey came first, hauling in trays of catered food, pasta, salad, bread, some kind of chicken dish that smelled good despite everything. Kelsey was dressed like she was going to a cocktail party, all makeup and jewelry and a dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. The kids ran straight to me. Mason hugged me around the waist. Tessa showed me a drawing she'd made of a butterfly. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," I said, and I meant it. Whatever happened tonight, the kids didn't deserve to be hurt by it, but they needed to see the truth about their father. Cole was in full showman mode, smiling big, talking loud, playing the devoted son. He set the food out on my dining table like he was hosting a cooking show. "Looking good in here, Dad," he said, glancing around. "House is really clean." "I try to keep it up," I said. "Yeah, but it's a lot of work, right? All this space for just one person." "I manage." Kelsey's parents showed up next. Richard gave me a firm handshake and a look that said he'd already made up his mind about me. His wife Linda was quieter, nervous, clutching her purse like she didn't want to be there. They'd been briefed, I could tell. Cole had already told them I was declining, that this dinner was partly to help me see reason. Then Randall Pike and his wife showed up. Randall was exactly what I'd expected from Cole's descriptions. Mid-50s, loud, too much cologne, slicked back hair, expensive watch. He shook my hand way too hard and called me Pops, like we were old friends. His wife, I didn't catch her name, smiled politely and didn't say much. We all sat down to eat. The dining table was crowded, 8 adults and 2 kids, but it worked. Cole made a big show of serving me first, asking if I needed help, adjusting my chair. I let him fuss. The conversation was all surface level at first. Weather, sports, Kelsey's latest wellness project, something about gut health and fermented foods that made Randall's wife nod enthusiastically. Randall talked about the real estate market, how hot it was, how fast properties were moving. "You've got a great piece of property here, Pops," he said, gesturing around with his fork. "Classic ranch style, good bones, nice lot. In this market, you could get a really good price." "I'm not selling," I said. "Oh, I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying if you ever wanted to downsize, explore your options, the timing couldn't be better." "Randall does flips all over the county," Cole chimed in. "He's really good at seeing potential in properties. He was just telling me the other day how much value you could unlock here with some updates." "I don't need updates. House is fine." "Of course it is," Cole said quickly. "We're just talking hypothetically." Richard cleared his throat. "Harry, Cole mentioned you've been thinking about your future, making some plans." I looked at Cole. He was watching me carefully, waiting to see how I'd respond. "Did he?" I said. "It's smart," Richard continued. "My own father did estate planning when he hit 65. Made everything much easier for the family when the time came." "I'm 61, I said. "Right, but it's never too early. And Cole seems very committed to making sure you're taken care of." Kelsey jumped in. "We just want what's best for you, Harry. We've been so worried, seeing you struggle with things. We want to help." I looked around the table. At Cole, so confident. At Kelsey, so practiced. At Randall, already counting his commission. At Richard, judging me with every glance. The kids were quiet, sensing the tension, but not understanding it. "All right," I said, setting down my fork. "What is it you all want to talk about?" Cole's face lit up like I'd just given him the opening he'd been waiting for. "Well, Dad, since everyone's here, I thought maybe this would be a good time to discuss some of that paperwork I mentioned, just to get everything organized. Nothing scary, nothing complicated. Just some basic documents to make sure you're protected." He reached down beside his chair and pulled out a leather folder, set it on the table. "I had some papers drawn up," he continued. "Power of attorney, healthcare directives, that kind of thing. Standard stuff. It just means that if anything ever happens, if you get sick or if you need help making decisions, I can step in and take care of things for you, so you don't have to worry. You want me to sign these now, during dinner? We don't have to do it right now, but since everyone's here, they could witness it. Make it all official and legal. It would just take a minute." I looked at the folder, then at Cole, then at everyone else at the table. "Before I sign anything," I said slowly, "there's something I'd like everyone here to see." Cole frowned. "Dad, I don't think... It'll just take a few minutes." I stood up, picked up the remote control from the side table, and pointed it at the TV. "I think it's important for everyone to understand the full situation." "Harry, maybe we should talk about this privately," Kelsey said, her voice tight. "No," I said. "I think everyone should see this." I hit the button. The TV switched from cable to the laptop input. The first clip appeared on the screen. Cole in my kitchen, late at night, the timestamp clear in the corner. He was standing at the counter, a small white box in front of him, crushing pills with the back of a spoon and scraping the powder into chocolate molds. The room went completely silent. "What is this?" Kelsey whispered. "Keep watching," I said calmly. The clip continued. Cole finishing with the pills, pouring melted chocolate into the molds, setting them aside to cool. His face was clearly visible. There was no question it was him. The clip ended. The next one started immediately. Audio only this time, but the voices were crystal clear. Cole and Randall talking on speakerphone. Cole's voice. "Once he's in assisted living and we sell the house, the numbers look beautiful. 400, maybe 450 if we stage it right." Randall's voice. "And you're sure you can get him moved?" Cole. "I'm working on it. Another couple weeks of documented incidents and we'll have enough for a competency hearing." Richard's face had gone pale. Linda had her hand over her mouth. Randall was staring at the screen like he'd just been slapped. The audio clip ended. The next video started. Cole and Kelsey in my living room 2 weeks ago. The kids were upstairs. You could hear them playing in the background. Cole's voice. "If he takes the stairs too fast, if he falls, nobody's going to question it. Old guy, bad back, living alone. Accidents happen." Kelsey. "You really think it'll come to that?" Cole. "I hope not. But if he fights us on the assisted living thing, we might not have a choice. We need that house equity, Kels. We're drowning in debt." "Oh my God," Linda breathed. Kelsey was shaking her head, tears starting to stream down her face. "This is out of context. You don't understand." "Let it play," I said. The next file appeared. A scanned document. The lab report from the chocolates, highlighting the dangerous combination of medications, the note at the bottom warning about the risk of syncope and falls in elderly patients. Then Dr. Alvarez's letter appeared on screen, certifying my complete mental competence. Dated 2 weeks ago, then the trust documents, showing that every asset I owned, the house, the pension, the settlement money, was locked in a trust for Mason and Tessa, with a neutral trustee, with no access for Cole. Richard stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loud against the floor. "Kelsey, is this true? Did you know about this?" She couldn't speak, just sat there sobbing. Cole shot to his feet. You had no right to record us. That's illegal. You can't..." "Actually," I said, my voice perfectly calm, "Indiana is a one-party consent state. I can record any conversation I'm a part of or that takes place in my home. And even if it wasn't legal as evidence in court, it's perfectly legal to show to guests in my own living room." "You're out of your mind," Cole spat. "You're confused, you're paranoid, you don't know what you're doing." "I'm confused?" I walked over to the table and picked up the folder he'd brought. Opened it, started reading. "Power of attorney granting Cole Mercer full authority over Harold Mercer's financial, medical, and legal affairs. Transfer of property deed. Authorization for nursing home placement." I looked up at him. This is what you wanted me to sign, in front of all these people, so they could witness how willing and competent I seemed. I tore the papers cleanly in half. The sound of ripping paper was loud in the silent room. I let the pieces fall onto the table like snow. Then I laid down my own documents, the trust, the will, the revocation forms, all notarized, all legal. You tried to turn me into a confused old man you could lock away and strip for parts, I said. My voice was quiet, but everyone heard every word. You tried to poison me with those chocolates. You tried to build a case that I was mentally incompetent. You planned to sell my house out from under me, and you talked about causing an accident if I didn't go along with it. Cole's hands were shaking. His face had gone from pale to flushed, red blotches appearing on his neck. Instead, I continued, you just lost my house. You lost my money. You lost any claim to anything I own. From this moment on, you don't control a single mile of my life, Cole, not one. I looked straight into his eyes. Happy birthday to me, son. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Mason's small voice cut through the silence. Dad, what did you do? Cole looked at his son, at his daughter, who was starting to cry, at his wife, whose perfect image had just shattered, at Richard and Linda, who were staring at him with horror and disgust, at Randall, who was already standing up, backing toward the door, saying, I swear I didn't know about any of this. Cole opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. You, he started, his voice cracking. You can't. I already did. His fists clenched. His whole body was trembling, with rage, with humiliation, with the weight of everything he'd just lost. He took a step toward me. I didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there, calm, in control, everything I'd prepared for this moment flowing through me like water. He stopped, because there was nothing he could do, nothing he could say. The evidence was there, the witnesses had seen it, the documents were signed and notarized. His reputation, his credibility, his entire carefully constructed image, all of it was gone, destroyed in front of the very people whose respect he'd been desperate to maintain. Get out of my house, I said quietly. Cole just stood there, frozen, his face a mask of rage and shame and defeat.